The shot echoed through the trees like a thunderclap. No one moved. Even the champion, standing off to the side, blinked and looked toward the digital screen. His record, untouched for nearly 5 years, had just been broken by a woman no one had heard of. For a few seconds, there was only silence. Then came the murmurs. Who is she? Did she get lucky? Is that even possible? But she didn't smile. She didn't look around. She just calmly stepped away from the line, her rifle still resting lightly in her arms. To her, it wasn't a surprise. It was just another shot, something she'd done hundreds of times before, away from crowds and cameras, in silence. The others didn't know where she came from. They didn't know how she learned to shoot with such accuracy, or what brought her to this small town. Competition in the first place. Some thought maybe she was military. Others whispered about private training. A few guessed she had some elite background, maybe even trained with special forces. But the truth was, no one knew. And she wasn't telling. The only thing clear was that her presence had shaken up the entire competition. The champion, tall, proud, and now visibly uncomfortable, glanced toward her with a look that was hard to read. Was it doubt, challenge, or something closer to fear? He wasn't the only one feeling the shift. The judges leaned in. Spectators stared. Even the other competitors, who had laughed earlier, now stood quietly, rethinking everything. And while everyone around her was buzzing with questions, theories, and doubts, she calmly loaded her next round because she wasn't done yet, and something about the way she moved said this story was far from over. It was just another quiet morning at the shooting range until she walked in, dressed in plain clothes, hair tied in a simple braid, and eyes full of quiet confidence. She didn't look like someone who could make headlines. People barely noticed her at first. The regulars, mostly men, were busy comparing gear, adjusting scopes, and sharing loud stories about their best shots. No one offered her help. No one asked if she'd been there before. Some even smirked when she quietly signed up for the competition. To them, she was just a woman, a beginner, maybe someone tagging along with a more experienced shooter. But she wasn't here to make friends. She wasn't here to prove a point either. She was here for something else, something deeper. What they didn't know was that behind her calm face and soft voice was a lifetime of training, discipline, and quiet strength. And while others were showing off their equipment and ego, she was focused on something else entirely. Her shot, as the event kicked off, the energy was electric. The reigning champion, a former military marksman known for his unbeatable record, stood tall with confidence, soaking in the attention. Everyone expected him to win. No one even thought about the quiet woman in the back, holding an old but well-maintained rifle. And then it was her turn. People stopped talking. The wind settled. The moment felt still. She took position, eyes locked in, breathing slow and steady. What happened next changed everything. One shot, just one, and the entire shooting range fell silent. The scoreboard blinked. People leaned in. Whispers started. Because in that single shot, something unbelievable had just happened. But was it luck? Or was this just the beginning of something much bigger? The second round began, and all eyes were now on her. The quiet woman who had arrived unnoticed was now at the center of every conversation. Even the camera crews, who were earlier focused on the usual faces, had slowly turned their lenses in her direction. But she didn't flinch. She didn't look for the attention. She stayed locked in, calm and steady, as if none of it mattered. Her second shot rang out sharp, clean, perfect. Another bullseye. The champion tightened his grip on his rifle. He'd always been the one people cheered for, the one everyone expected to win. He wasn't used to feeling unsure. But now, someone was threatening the title he'd worn like armor. And what made it worse, she hadn't even said a word to him. Number? Challenge. No trash talk. Just quiet skill that somehow stung even more. Meanwhile, backstage, whispers turned into small arguments. One of the judges began questioning whether her equipment was regulation. Another competitor suggested she had insider help. But nothing stuck. Her gear was checked. Everything was legal. Her rifle, while older, was balanced and perfectly maintained. Still, the doubts grew not because of any rule she broke, but because she didn't fit their idea of what a champion looked like, away from the main stage. A reporter tried to dig deeper, asking the organizers who she was. They came up empty. No public record, no online presence. Just a name on the sign-up sheet and a performance that was now rewriting expectations. And the woman. She just waited patiently for her next turn, watching the clouds roll by. What no one knew was that this wasn't her. First time facing doubters, but it might be the first time they all truly saw what she was capable of. The final round was moments away, and the air felt heavier than before. Spectators gathered closer to the range, phones out, whispering to each other. Even the competitors who hadn't paid her any attention earlier now stood behind the line, watching every movement she made. The reigning champion, once relaxed and full of confidence, now wore a forced smile. His jaw was tight. His hands twitched slightly as he cleaned his rifle one more time, something he never did this late in the competition. She remained still, focused. Her eyes scanned the distance, not the crowd. The target was all that mattered. Round her, tension wrapped itself around every second. The scoreboard still had her leading by 1 point. One more round, and everything could change. Back at the control tent, the officials argued in low voices. One judge wanted a recheck on her earlier scores, but another refused, pointing out that the data had been verified multiple times. The system didn't lie. Her shots were perfect. It wasn't luck, it was skill. The champion's coach leaned in close to him before the round. "You have to shut her down now," he said. "Don't let her win this stage. Hit every mark. You can't afford to miss." The champion nodded, but his eyes kept drifting toward her. She wasn't intimidated. She wasn't shaken. In fact, she looked more grounded than ever. As the timer began counting down, the silence deepened. Birds quieted. No one moved. She stepped forward, shoulders squared, rifle in hand. The wind lightly moving her braid. The champion followed, setting his position just a few feet away. For the first time in years, he wasn't sure he'd win. The buzzer rang. Both rifles lifted. At the same time, what happened next would decide everything. The buzzer had barely faded when both rifles cracked through the silence. 2 shots fired almost at the same time, clean, sharp, nearly identical. The crowd held their breath, eyes bouncing between the 2 shooters and the scoreboard. Seconds felt like minutes. Then the screen lit up. His shot, 9.8. Hers, 10.0. Another. Bullseye. The crowd erupted in murmurs, but before the whispers could fully settle, something unexpected happened. A tech from the scoring system rushed to the judge's table, his face tense. He whispered something that made one of the officials stand up. Another joined in. They huddled, eyes wide, glancing toward the woman, then back to the screen. The announcement came through the speaker. Due to an unexpected data flag, the scoring system will undergo a brief review. All shooters are asked to step back. She didn't flinch. He didn't either. But something had shifted. The tension that was already high now turned sharp. The crowd buzzed louder. Some thought the system glitched. Others believed someone was trying to change the outcome. Backstage, a man no one had noticed earlier was seen speaking with a judge's low voice, suit, earpiece. He wasn't part of the range staff. Some whispered he was from a private firm. Others guessed military. The woman stepped aside, her face calm, but her eyes sharp. She knew this wasn't about the scores anymore. This was bigger. She'd seen this kind of interference before in other places under different flags. It always looked the same. Quiet pressure. Sudden errors. Invisible hands behind the curtain. The champion looked shaken, not just by her skill but by what was unfolding. Because deep down, he also sensed this was no longer just a competition. Now it was about control, and not everyone wanted her to win. The review dragged on longer than anyone expected. Tension grew with every passing minute. The woman remained. Still, her eyes fixed ahead, not on the scoreboard, not on the judges, just forward. The champion paced quietly, glancing toward the officials, toward her, then down at his boots. He knew the truth already. Everyone did. Her shots were clean. Her aim was real. And no amount of rechecking would change that. Finally, the head judge stepped up to the mic. His voice was steady, but something in his expression betrayed the pressure. Behind the scenes, after a full system check, all scores stand. The final round was clean. No technical errors. The winner of today's championship is contestant 42. No name, just her number. But the crowd didn't need clarification. They erupted not with cheers, but with stunned silence followed by a slow wave of clapping, then full applause. Even those who doubted her earlier were now standing. The champion stepped forward, holding his rifle low. For a moment, it looked like he might walk off without a word, but instead, he extended a hand. "You earned it," he said quietly. "Fair and square." She nodded once, shook his hand, then turned as the cameras moved in. But before the reporters could reach her, the man in the suit appeared again, now speaking directly to her. His voice was low,